Well, the war in Ukraine does drag on more than 100 days now, and all of us are paying the price. Ask yourself, aren't you paying higher gas and oil prices because of bans on Russia? Aren't you paying higher food prices? Ukraine can't get its wheat and other crops out to the world. Russia's playing hostage, hostage diplomacy here. Won't feed the world unless you stop supporting Ukraine. And of course, the Ukrainians are paying even more with their lives, and there seems no end to it. Russia has, yes, given up trying to capture all of Ukraine. It got smashed. Now it's trying to just capture Ukraine's east and southern coast, with the heaviest fighting now in a battle for the city of Severodonetsk, where the Ukrainians are trying to hold out and inflict casualties on the Russians. But, they're facing Russia's stronger artillery and its greater manpower. Now, Ukraine's president does say things are going to change when more of the heavy weapons donated by the West arrive, but really it's coming in a trickle, that heavy weaponry, for all the big talk. And let's not forget, you may think this is all a long way away from us, so what, a country you probably never heard of before, who cares? But Russia's main ally, China, it's watching all this, and it's working out how strong is the West really? How strong is its will to fight? They talk big on Ukraine. Will they crumble? And I think they might. Will they crumble in supporting Ukraine? Because China actually has war in its mind too. So, joining me to give the big picture here is Jack Keane. He's a retired four-star general, former Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He's now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Keane, thank you so much indeed for your time. The Russians seem to have been fought to a standstill in that city that you mentioned last time you were on, a couple of weeks ago, Severodonetsk, a city in eastern Ukraine they've been trying to capture for weeks now. What does this tell you, this stalemate, about where this war is going?
Yeah, well, what's taking place, Andrew, so your audience can understand, is this is largely an artillery war and a war of attrition now. And the Russians have the preponderance of the artillery, and that is why they've been asking for multiple rocket launches from the other states and other countries, which give them a greater range to reach some of the Russian artillery, which has longer range. But what has also happened is the stiffness of the Ukrainian defense, and that's why it's taken so many weeks. The casualties on both sides are very high, and that is normal when you're in an artillery war. And I think what it says is the Russians will likely take this city that you referred to, but they'll probably have to have an operational pause to refit before they go further to the west to take the entire Donbass region, is what they want to do. And they may not be able to take all of it because they've had such significant losses. Also, from the Ukrainians' perspective, Andrew, while they have had some success conducting limited counterattacks, because of the casualties, I don't see them being able to take wholesale counter-offensive operations. In other words, what they wanted to do was conduct a counter-offense to take significant territory back from the Russians. But their casualties are taking a toll, and while I don't know for certain, I think it's going to limit their capability in doing just that. So what this means is we're heading to some kind of stalemate, Andrew, where the Russians can't achieve all that they want to do, and the Ukrainians can't take back the territory that they want. This is not good for the Ukrainians, because any kind of stalemate, Andrew, where the Russians control the southern coast, they're blocking Ukraine from getting any of their exports out, and they have a little bit more territory than what they had on February the 24th. They'll settle in there, rebuild, reposition their forces, and at some point start up again. So what the Ukrainians are trying to do is get them off their territory completely, and that seems to be quite a bit of a challenge now. I don't see that happening to the degree that the Ukrainians would want it to happen. So I think we're facing a stalemate probably sometime during the summer or by the end of the summer for sure.
That is actually quite bad news, of course. What Russia doesn't take in this grab, it might then later take in a second. Well, looking further afield, General Keane, it seems to me this war may have backfired on China. It backed Russia in a pact signed 2 weeks before Russia did invade Ukraine. It was almost like, a go-ahead from China. Now we see not just countries in NATO's European Defence Alliance, the European countries there, cooperating more to try to hold Russia, to beat Russia, or at least to stop Russia, but now also this week on Tuesday talking to Japan about cooperating militarily in this region, obviously to counter the rising threat of China as well. How important is this development?
Well, certainly the world has awoken to the reality that Russia and China have formed an alliance, and for mutual purposes and interests, vastly different countries. I mean, China is a rising power. You could make the case, despite the Ukrainian invasion, given the economy and all the demographic problems that Russia has, it's a declining power. But nonetheless, their common objective is to change the world order as it is known right now since World War II, where the United States and like-minded democracies throughout the world are trying to keep the world stable and push back against authoritarian regimes. And it's very interesting that what you're mentioning, here's Japan participating as we speak in a naval exercise that's NATO-run in the Mediterranean. They've sanctioned Russia as a result of their invasion in Ukraine. They're providing some assistance to the Ukraine, mostly financial. And, of course, what they want in return is that some NATO nations would come to their assistance in the event that there's war in the Indo-Pacific with China, likely over Taiwan. So, yes, this is a good thing that's coming out of this, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of Japan, NATO countries being very much aware of China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. France has been out there with naval ships. The Brits have been out in the Indo-Pacific with naval ships as well. So certainly they're taking stock of the fact that these two countries have come together for mutual benefit, and collectively they need to push back on both of them.
I think that's absolutely right. It's quite frightening. I mean, I know they're very different countries, as you said, but it is an alliance of authoritarian states promoting authoritarian values. I find that quite frightening. Talking still on China, we have seen it, General, in our region act so aggressively. I mean, just the other day, you've almost certainly read one of its fighter jets even intercepted one of our surveillance aircraft in international waters near the South China Sea that China has stolen, claims now it's its own. That jet tried to spray aluminium strips into the engines of our plane, which could have brought it down. Now we see Taiwan also now seeing what's going on, stepping up its defences against a likely Chinese invasion. Now, looking at the big picture, given what's happened in Ukraine to Russia, China's ally, that war's just not gone to plan, even though, it's going to have limited success. Is China, in your view, less likely or more likely to invade Taiwan in the near future and to succeed?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And certainly they have to be disappointed in Russia's performance and the fact that Russia has also become something of an international pariah as a result of their war atrocities and war criminal activity. All that said, though, China is operating in their national interest, and they're going to pay attention to what lessons can they learn from what has taken place in Ukraine, the effectiveness of the sanctions. And they know full well the sanctions can take quite a toll on Russia, whereas universal sanctions against China would not have as great an effect because of the size of China's economy, certainly. But other lessons to be learned also they're watching. Nonetheless, to come back to the basic point, I believe President Xi, he stated it over and over again, and he's going to be enshrined this fall and given another term of office, another 5 years, and likely an indefinite term. And as a result, he has repeated that if Taiwan does not come under the umbrella of mainland China willingly, then he will use force to accomplish that, and I don't believe he's given up on it. And then when I talk to officials in the United States government, and particularly U.S. defense officials, as late as today on this very subject, Andrew, they are concerned that the clock for China acting here is in the next few years, and it's worrisome to them. And that is why Taiwan has got to go through military reform and certainly increase their defense capabilities. And we have got to learn the lesson. We're in emergency resupply of Ukraine after the war began. We can't wait until that happens dealing with Taiwan. We got to give them full-throated support now. And they're an island nation. There's no nation, no border that we can fly an airplane in and then drive vehicles across that border to resupply them with arms and ammunitions. That will be a contest just to be able to get in there after the war starts. So we have got to help them now. And certainly Taiwan has learned a lot from the Ukrainians, watching what they've done and seeing the skill and the will that they have and the support they have from their population. It is certainly awakened in them the reality of what they're facing, and their determination also to upgun their capabilities and to get their people more involved is certainly unfolding as we speak. There is danger ahead, in my judgment, as it pertains to China conducting an invasion or some kind of military incursion dealing with Taiwan.
General Jack Keane, you paint a frightening picture, but I think we need to confront it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, great talking to you, Andrew, as always.